Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Lab. I'm looking forward to talking with Faisal. Faisal, it's great to connect with you. You've got a really extensive background, and you're an entrepreneur. You're a disruptor. You've worked for Google. We're going to get into a lot of details and how you're really just recreating the funeral industry, which I'm looking forward to diving into that. I'm a business coach here in Canada. I work with people all over the globe who are successful and stuck. And so I always like to start my conversations with, where's a recent stuck you've had and how did you get unstuck?
Oh, I've been stuck at every stage. I mean, being stuck is, I think, most of 99% of the running a business is being stuck.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you about so many times I've been stuck just in terms of trying to figure out, do we even have a right business model? If you go back to one of the earliest businesses I ran, all the way back to about 2010, I had just dropped out of university and I was running this business. And it was just like, well, I know how to build it, but how do I even get that first customer? And you were just stuck on how do I become more than a developer? And that was my personal stuck. And this was when I was 20 because I knew how to code it, but I didn't know how to get sales. I didn't know how to market. And so I've been stuck there many times. And then as I got unstuck, say, I figured out how to get my first customers, figured out how to get sales and marketing, then you get stuck on, well, how do you scale up? And you look at, well, what am I doing? What I'm doing works to get 10 customers, but I can't sustainably do that to get 1,000 customers. And so many times in my career, I've gotten stuck,
Yeah.
and then the other times it's just been external forces, right? Whether it's regulatory issues, trying to launch a business, or just uh, the rules are changing for advertising, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. I appreciate that. When you look at kind of, getting stuck in your business plan and looking at original business plans, what's one thing, I'm a big believer that business plans should be a live document, right? You don't create a business plan and then put it away. I work with my clients on this all the time. It's a live business plan. You're looking at it every single day. And
Absolutely.
so to your point, I think your example was a little bit different, but to a company who is, you know, creating a business plan and looking at it once a year, what is one thing that you would recommend on somebody who's in the innovation space, and how important is it to have a living business plan? What's one reason why?
Because the market is always iterative. Like if you are basing your business plan on, let's take an example of AI, right? Because that's all everyone talks about now. But let's say your business plan was built on, we're building a product that helps people write blog posts, and this is 2020. It's great, and maybe you look at it every couple of months. You're like, the market hasn't changed. Then ChatGPT comes out, and suddenly the market changed. If you're not looking at your business plan and thinking how you pivot or market or create a new value proposition, then you're going to be left behind. And
Yeah.
in tech, I mean, that's an extreme example, but in tech, specifically in your niche that you're going in, guaranteed the consumer behavior is changing, the way your competition's changing. Another competitor might get a whole bunch of new funding. So your business plan, you shouldn't spend, at least in my opinion, you shouldn't spend like 6 months working on your business plan without even launching. I know a lot of people try to do that. I would spend, you know, 2 3 weeks a month, but as you're doing it, I want you to like look at the market and do this iterative approach where it's not step A, step B. It's like you're running everything in parallel and modifying it as you're growing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. Let me ask you a question. So, you have been a trailblazing entrepreneur, a Google developer, but you're also, you're basically recreating from an innovative standpoint the funeral industry, right? You have a business, Irene Cremations, Irene Eirene cremations.com, and you're creating a new space, and I want to talk about that because I think a lot of companies right now are trying to figure out, and a lot of people right now are trying to figure out what is the new space for fill in the blank. And
Yeah.
so, for anybody who is thinking like that, what three recommendations would you give them on how to begin to think and or execute differently today versus yesterday?
So, I think a lot of thinking about how to disrupt an industry is understanding that industry. A lot of people dive into certain industries going, I'm going to change it, but they don't know anything about it. Not that I knew much about the funeral space. What I did and what I have learned from working on many different businesses is either you understand the business in depth or you work with a co-founder that understands it in depth, or you have some advantage in that industry. So, I started thinking about the death sector when I was traveling in Japan and seeing how Japanese companies are doing stuff there. And I was fascinated. So I understood that there is a need for this in North America. But I didn't have any relationship with the death sector. And then I met my co-founder, and her father's a funeral director. So there it was just like, okay, let's try to understand what are the missing pieces in this industry and where we can exploit it. So definitely there's this idea of product market fit that everyone talks about, but there's also founder market fits. And you have to become that founder that can fit in that market, whether through, learning everything about the industry while working in it, or working with someone that understands that industry and learning through osmosis. I think a good example is like Elon Musk, when he talked about SpaceX. Elon Musk didn't sit there and become a rocket scientist. He understood the mechanics of how to build rockets, but then he hired the right people that understood that market. And so that's definitely number one. Number two is understanding, and this comes with understanding the market, is your solution too early or too late? A lot of times people would, and the only way you find that out is you get that solution out ASAP. Very rarely can you sit and ponder on it and just be like, we're too early to the market. And so I would definitely say iterate and get to market fast once you understand the market, in order to be able to see, can this be disruptive? And it sounds funny to say, but you have to think big, but you have to execute something very specific and small. You can't go out and try to build the entire ecosystem, trying to disrupt it. If you look at any big tech company, Google now has Google Ads, Android, and all sorts of stuff. But Google, when they launched with just a search engine. Yes, their ambition was to be disruptive, and they were disruptive with just a search engine, but they didn't do everything that they do now. And so when we launched Irene, the Irene of 3 years ago is fundamentally vastly different than the Irene of now, just because we've been in the market, we understand the market better, and we've been able to disrupt it more.
Yeah. What's number three?
Number three, I would say, is try to see. So there is a value to going into the market. So while my co-founder Mallory and I aren't directly from the industry, we have this relationship with the industry through her father. And so what we did was we looked at it from a fresh set of eyes, and we spoke to a whole bunch of people in the industry. It is very important you understand who the players are in the industry and what they're doing, and not just the competitors per se, but the users, and try to understand that research is valuable. And so we spoke to so many people, went to these things called death cafes where people talk about the relationship with death. And we tried to understand, how when people pass away, how do their family members, what do they do? Do they just, walk into the funeral home? And if they do they like doing that? Would they rather just stay at home and make a phone call? And so from the discussions, we actually understood that people didn't want to just go to a funeral home. What they wanted to do, which seems so obvious, is focus on their family. And so with Irene, what we designed was we said, look, we're an online funeral home. You can call us 24/7. At 3 a.m. in the morning, you can give us a call, and someone will be there. We're always there. We'll take care of your loved one, and you can go back to taking care of your family and making sure, they're okay, and the whole process around that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's so interesting. I mean, what you're talking about is listening to the market, right?
Absolutely.
Don't spend too much time planning. You got to get into the market, talk to the people, listen to the people, get the feedback, hear the feedback. I think that's so important. Let's talk about Google for a minute. You're a Google developer expert for over 12 years. Google seems to be everywhere, know all, to everything, So, what does Google look like in 3 years?
Well, okay. So my professional working relationship with Google is twofold. One is I've done some contracting with them, and it's been great. And I've been lucky enough to be part of the Google ecosystem without actually being on their payroll, aside from the contracting gigs, by being a Google developer expert, which means that I get insight knowledge just probably 6 months before products that are relevant to me are launching. They might pull me in and they might say, look, a new product is launching. Do you want to get educated on it so you can go and evangelize it? Which has been great. And so as I've seen this, I think, there's a lot of negativity around Google with, the culture shift and the layoffs and all that stuff. Though I think strongly that there is this Google, we'll figure it out type of model. Whenever I speak to Google engineers, extremely smart, and they always have a way to figuring out. Google has more money than, they have, their market cap is $1 trillion. So there's no lack of money. I think
right.
If they can figure out the right, not even leadership, the right values, and refine their values back to what they're known for, which is doing disruptive things, their next 2 years are very bright. The next 5 years are very bright. If you look at the AI stuff, a lot of people discount Google right away, because ChatGPT came out, et cetera, et cetera. But you look at Gemini, fantastic model. Some of the customers I consult with, they rather prefer Gemini over ChatGPT. Not specifically because one is better than the other. It's because with Gemini, you get this ecosystem that Google has built, right? And so like you were saying, Google's everywhere. Well, if you build on Gemini, their AI model, that's going to be absolutely everywhere. So if you're thinking of building a disruptive business, you go to Google Cloud, you're not only getting the scale of Google, but you're also getting that AI that's built into all these Google tools. And so it really helps you build disruptive businesses a lot faster. Google, I know this year is focusing more and more on that. So if they continue to do that focus, I think they'll have a bright future. But I'm no fortune teller, nor do I have actually Google stock. So I have no idea what's going to happen other than just my opinion.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurialism, being an entrepreneurialism. You're an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of times people are trying to find their inner entrepreneur, right? They're trying to figure it out. Maybe it's something on Etsy part-time. Maybe it's something that they're building right now that will, start really slow. And when people can make a move, they will. But when it comes to, kind of how to fit being an entrepreneur into a life where maybe you aren't an entrepreneur right now, but want to be one, what are 3 suggestions you would give people to tap into their inner entrepreneur to make it a reality over the next 1 week or 10 years?
Number one is the most important thing is finances. Not that I strongly do not recommend anyone just go, I'm going to leave my job and become an entrepreneur. I think you need to, and which is what I've done. So I'm speaking from personal experience. A lot of times you need to make sacrifices on what you're going to do after your 9 to 5. So you come back home from 9 to 5 and whatever your hours are, and you need to go, all right, I'm going to eat dinner, spend time with kids, et cetera, et cetera. But then you need to give some dedicated focus time every day on building on your business. That is number one. The worst thing you could do is leave your job right away. And the reason, and you might say, well, that doesn't make sense. I have enough, runway for a year, savings saved up for a year. That's fantastic. But you want to use those savings saved up for a year that you have when you have de-risked your business enough that it makes sense to do that. Yeah. I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs go, well, I'm going to leave my job. I have a year's worth of runway. And I told them, please don't, but they do. And you know what? Fine. Good luck to them. And what almost always has happened, actually in all cases, is month 8 comes by and the business hasn't taken off because building a business is very hard. and you really haven't made revenue, or you've made some small amounts of revenue, still not enough to sustain you. What happens is you start to make business decisions based on your own personal finances, and those decisions are basically like you're worked up into a corner, and you just have to make this decision. Otherwise, you're going to run out of money, and chances are you do end up running out of money. And so, what I did, and I've done many times, every time I've started a business, is I've had, if I have a day job, great. After like 5, 6 p.m., that's when I'm starting working on my business. Sure, I'll be a bit tired. I'll recover on the weekends. And you kind of do that till you get to business in a spot where you're like, you know what? I can now confidently say that I have like a 60% chance of survival, right?
Yeah.
Because I see some revenue coming in. I see a path to growth. Maybe it's not recurring revenue, but you know how to, if you spend 4 hours and you make $1,000, then what if you spend 8 hours? Can you make $10,000? If that math calculus starts to work out, then you can start to, take days off work and see if it works out, and then just leave your job. So that's how I've done it. That's how a lot of my friends have done it, and they've been able to grow their businesses because they've de-risked their finances a lot.
Yeah.
Number two, honestly, is finding the right setup. Like, how would I describe this? You have to iterate fast. What I mean by right setup is if you start working on something and you go, you know what, like this is the best idea I've ever had, right? But then you quickly realize it's not working. Don't stick to it, right? Start iterating on it. I've seen too many people just countlessly get stuck on one idea and fall in love with it, and then they go, well, I've worked on this for 12 months and nothing's happened. Well, you had 11 or 6 months. You gave your idea 6 months. You had another 6 months to try different ideas, but you kept sticking to the same idea. And I don't mean, you changed ideas vastly. What I mean is you start to figure out, in this space that I'm working in, what are different ideas of ways of making money? So if you start selling books, maybe not books, maybe you start, actually, say, fine, you start selling books, right? Then you're like, okay, well, people aren't buying books. But maybe you go, instead of books, physical books, you look at ebooks. Or maybe you look at book publishing. So there's so many things in that space that you can try to tackle. And you can do it very quickly. And you have a full-time job where if you do need some advertising funding, all that stuff, you can, not put a bit of money into savings and start trying that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the third one would be here. Let me try to think.
I would say the third thing could be have the discipline to do something every day to work towards it, have the courage to keep going.
That's it.
And stay consistent and
Yes.
keep it alive. Like the business plan we talked about, keep it alive, right? And don't get discouraged. Don't allow yourself to be discouraged. Do one small thing every day, even if it's 30 to 60 seconds, to keep it in flow. That I think is a thing
you're guaranteed to see failure, like 1,000%. Something's not gonna work. I just don't mean failure in terms of the whole business not working, but something you try is not gonna work. Maybe you're so committed that if your Etsy store is on TikTok ads, it's gonna sell a shit ton, but it doesn't, right? That doesn't mean your business doesn't work. It means you need to go, why did it not work? Analyze it, and then try something else.
Correct.
It's very important you stay committed to. It's not committed to the business idea. It's committed to you being an entrepreneur and the journey that you're committed to.
Well,
right?
Committed to the feedback and understanding what that means and where it's coming from, and how to evolve the nuances of the business. That's what entrepreneurialism, not getting too emotionally connected to the product or the service, but really listening to what the consumer wants and adjusting those small little adjustments that make a huge impact. Where someone says, God, why didn't I think of that? That seems so obvious.
You are not building a business. You are not the customer. Like for most parts, yes, there is a lot of businesses where you are the customer, but you're not paying this business $1 million. right? You need to make $1 million. If you want to make $1 million, you need to figure out what the customers want. Maybe there's a chance that exactly what you wanted, that this product, what works for you, works for everyone else. But there's a great chance that it doesn't. Like, think about there's so many products out there. Let's look at TikTok, for example. I never used TikTok. If I would have built TikTok, first of all, I would have been like, yeah, you know what? I probably don't need it. Like, I wouldn't use this, so why am I going to build it? But if someone was building TikTok, they did the market research. They found out the exact market that uses TikTok, and they built it for that market. And TikTok is a very successful business. So you have to really think of it that way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's great. All right. Quick speed round.
Cool.
Quick speed round. Book that's had the biggest impact on you.
Oh, I love 0 to 1.
Yeah, great one.
Fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Best piece of wisdom. I don't know. I think the best piece of wisdom is just keep trying. Like, I don't know who gave it to me, but it's just, you just got to keep trying. Right. What else are you going to do?
Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to, when they're in a boardroom talking about how to, think about their company because somebody may disrupt it. One thing they should be thinking about is?
If you're talking about if someone else is going to disrupt your company?
Yeah.
You have to go back to why you started this business and what makes the business, like, what's the core experience of the business. If you grow too big, then there's a high chance you lose touch with what actually drove this business forward in the first place.
That's great. Thank you so much. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are and where they can connect with you.
I mean, if you're in Canada, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, you can just go to irenecremations.com. If you've lost somebody or are about to lose someone, or you want to pre-plan, go to irenecremations.com. If you want to just chat with me about AI and machine learning and stuff, you can go to my website, faisalabid.com. You can find my LinkedIn and connect with me on there.
I love it. I appreciate your time today, Faisal. It was great connecting with you. Within community, I always like to extract one thing, and that one thing today is keep trying, keep doing, keep moving, keep moving the ball forward 1 centimeter at a time. That's it. Absolutely. Keep going and don't lose sight of it. I appreciate your time. Give everybody your website one more time.
faisalabid.com and irenecremations.com.
All right. And you can reach me, everybody, at johndwoskin.com. Thanks. This was great. I really enjoyed our talk. Thanks so much.
Thanks.